to work, as you mentioned, hand in hand with anyone of any identity who wants to stand in solidarity. So we're grateful for those partners.
I want to thank you so much for being with us. Sara Aziza, the Palestinian-American journalist and author. Her new book is just out. It's called The Hollow Half, a memoir of bodies and borders. That does it for our show. Democracy Now! Is currently accepting applications for an individual giving manager to support our fundraising team. You can learn more at democracynow.org. Democracy Now! Is produced with Mike Burke, Renee Feltz, Dina Guzder, Messiah Rhodes, Nermeen Sheikh, Maria Tarasena, Tammy Warrenoff, Tarina Naduras, and Malkoff, Maria Studio, John Hamilton, Robbie Karen, Hani Masood, Anjali Kamat, Safwat Nazal. I'm Nini Goodman with Juan Gonzalez.
The viewpoints expressed in this program are the opinions of the people expressing them, and not necessarily those of Fresh Air Incorporated, its staff, or its board of directors.
Hi, this is Al McFarlane, host of The Conversation with Al McFarlane. You're listening to 90.3 FM, KFAI, Minneapolis. I'm Al McFarlane. Welcome to The Conversation with Al McFarlane. I'm glad to be here and glad to have you along as well. Kudos to our mighty station, KFAI, Amy Goodman, her crew, keeping us connected, keeping us informed, keeping us motivated. We're pleased to be part of this experience, of this community building that KFAI is at the center of. And we, again, say kudos, thank you to all of our colleagues, the staff, the volunteers, sponsors, and most of all, you, the listeners, for being part of creating a sense of community that is valid, that is valuable, and that is intentional. It's wonderful. Before I begin, I want to invite you to know that we are streaming the program across Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube, and we want you to connect with us via those social media platforms. Either of them, all of them, but wherever you are, do go over to YouTube, Insight News MN. That's where we're trying to do the bean counting and asking people to subscribe, to like, to share, and also it's a place where you can make a comment. You can add your voice to the conversation. Possibly, if you're interested, we could get you on the program as well. So go to the comment section if you're on either Facebook or LinkedIn or YouTube. Leave a comment, shout yourself out, your location out. Let us know where you are. And thank you again for being a part of the conversation with Al McFarlane. I just came from a wonderful business meeting a few minutes ago here in my neighborhood. Work is MEDA. MEDA used to be called the Metropolitan Economic Development Association, and it's now simply known by its acronym MEDA, M-E-D-A. It's at the building on the corner of Plymouth and Penn. Today's meeting was one of the meetings of a cohort of a small business development group done by MEDA in sponsorship or in partnership with the University of Minnesota Carlson School of Business. And today we heard an excellent presentation about how small businesses or businesses, regardless of size, can do business with an organization like Best Buy. So I want to shout out and say thanks to Sean Calabrasi, who presented. He's the Director of Procurement and BBYB Sales Center of Excellence at Best Buy. And he and his team made a great presentation. The beauty is companies are intentional in connecting and developing their supplier lists. And our community has people that are in business, that want to go in business, that have been in business, that are looking for ways to connect and build their sales, their revenue, by providing quality service, quality goods. And once again, kudos to the leadership team at the Best Buy Sales Center of Excellence. That's what it's called, because they're working with us, with small businesses and community, and saying, here's the roadmap, here's the plan. And you might want to do business with us, you might not. Maybe it's too much of a hassle, But if it's not, if it's consistent with your business aims and goals, here's how you do it. So again, shout out to Mita, shout out to Best Buy, and to Sean Calabrese. Well, let me go into today's program. I'm pleased to have a good friend, and I call her a young leader in our community, Angela Reed. Angela, good afternoon. How you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I am
So
really
nice
well.
to see you as usual.
Always good to see you and to be with you. And here you're here talking about your role as the leader of the Youth Advisory Board. Let's just jump right
Actually,
in.
I'm not the leader. It's a partnership that I've kind of really become engaged with and excited about. I met the youth that we're going to talk about at the National Homeless Day on the Hill a couple weeks ago, and he's got this great idea that he's really trying to push forward, and I really want to highlight that.
Well, there we go. There's a event coming up, right, that we want to talk about. Let's put that up and talk about that first. So the Heading Home Ramsey County Youth Advisory Board 2025 Flipping Tables Conference. Tell us about that.
Correct. And then Bear and Jartue would be kind of the leads on this. Bear, this is the brainchild of Bear from the Youth Advisory Council. There he is. And I would say her name correctly, so I don't think I'm going to even try to say it. She's trying to pull all this together and really bring in some leaders. They have a great vision, and I just really like the work that they're doing.
Well, Jartue, she told me I asked her for her name, so she smiles. I mean, yeah, I said it the right way. Good afternoon, Bear. Good afternoon, Jartue. Thank you both for being here. Let's jump into it then. Talk about this conference first. What does it mean? Bear, maybe you could start off.
Yeah, so the conference is really truly about bringing gainful employment to youth. What does it mean to be a youth who has struggled with housing instability and or homelessness, and really trying to be a productive member of society? What does that look like? And so the idea behind the Flipping Tables Conference is to really flip the tables on an employer career fair. And so instead of, a youth going up to an employer table and really being interviewed about that, it's really about the youth giving their story to the employers that may hire them.
And so the idea came from what?
Yeah, so the idea came from, I'm sitting president of Heading Home Ramsey Advisory Board, and we were just in one of our regularly scheduled meetings, and we were just talking about gainful employment with one of our partners, Wildfire, and there was a couple other people there, Cherie Gill from Workforce Solutions in Ramsey County, and we were talking about what it looks like to be an unhoused youth, or a youth that struggles in poverty, and trying to make more opportunities for them. And we just started talking about it, and there it was, you know what I mean? Just bouncing ideas off of each other. So I can't take full accountability for this. It's really just a collaboration between me and the amazing young people who are on the Youth Advisory Board.
Jartue, please jump in. Give people the date, time, place, and how they register, or if registration is needed, how do they connect to participate, both individuals and companies?
Yes, and thank you so much for having us on the show this afternoon. I would love to talk a little bit about the Flipping Tables Conference. So I am Jartue McCoy with Ramsey County's Housing Stability Department, and I also have the amazing honor to serve as the staff advisor for the Heading Home Ramsey Youth Advisory Board. And so that being said, we present our first major event, which is the 2025 Flipping Tables Conference. And thank you so much, Bear, for sharing your vision with us. And then, of course, it's been so exciting to pick this project off of the ground. It's been a year in the making, and we're just really excited to see everything come to fruition. So to give a little bit of context, in addition to the details as far as the location change and such, I want to make sure that we also have a thorough understanding of what additionally will be taking place during this conference. So actually, prior to the event that will take place on May 7th, the employers, the key audience that we want to make sure that we reach, those companies and organizations that hire our youth ages 16 to 24, even going into 25 and 26, transitioning out of youth services, we are going to have an employer orientation to lay down some foundation, provide a little bit of context about the history and prevalence of youth homelessness, not just in Ramsey County, but also within the state of Minnesota. And then we're also going to dive into a little bit of context around best practices when engaging young people, recognizing that these are vulnerable children, vulnerable young adults who are trying to identify how to foster really a variety of opportunities and also trying to find their own identity. And so really trying to lay some of that foundation so that employers can get to know the Youth Advisory Board in addition to getting some of that grounding context. And so as we move forward for the in-person event, which will take place on May 7th, next week at 4:30 to 7 p.m. And in fact, the location has changed to the Fairview Community Health and Wellness Hub, and that's also in downtown St. Paul. So we welcome youth advocates, employers who employ youth, as well as community partners and organizations, even if they offer services that may not be specifically for young people. But if you provide community resources that they may benefit, we welcome you to participate in any capacity that is realistic for you, to be a part of the dynamic storytelling. We'll also have a panel discussion that's led by young people, and also that panel discussion serving as a debrief for the storytelling piece, which is the flipping tables portion. So there's a lot to this event, but we're really, really excited for folks to, one, be invested in the Youth Advisory Board, but then also be invested in young people in general.
Sounds exciting. Angela, what caught your attention? Why did you get so excited when you heard and met these young leaders?
Well, number one, I was just instantly impressed by Bear. He and their group. I mean, I think they're very innovative with their approach. They 100% understand the needs of youth and also kind of the systematic barriers that are involved. Now, CloseKnit, what we really advocate for is natural supports and development of that system in terms of supporting youth. Oftentimes with family members is where a youth might be able to reside, or whatever supports and connections are needed throughout the community to make a youth thrive. And so the Youth Advisory Board, I think, was an excellent, very organized frontier and way to bring connection to the community. They really support their youth, and the youth are very vocal about what they need and the importance of how really our system creates barriers that need to be dismantled, and really focusing and doing the hard work. And so this opportunity I thought was just so interesting and new. And I really just wanted to be able to get it out to the community. They are looking for more partners to serve as leads on the tables, trying to bring more youth and children to participate in the activity and to really highlight the needs of this community. Youth homelessness and unhoused has a very, there's a lack of services available to this population, but it is a very high level population of homelessness that is very unrecognized and undersupported. So to really bring highlight to this issue on this scale, especially with the federal changes, and we don't know what the future of that is going to be, it's going to be the community that needs to really uplift and support these programs and these youth, and for the community to also recognize that we all play a role, because we know a youth who has experienced this, and there are things we can do to help and support, and if anything, give a rallying cry and raise our voices to bring awareness.
You take some time, if you would, and talk more about the mission of your organization, CloseKnit, and how that ties into this work.
Well, CloseKnit is the only intermediary organization in Minnesota, haven't confirmed throughout the country, that is focusing on chosen family hosting. And also it kind of relates to doubled up families. So focusing on grandparents who take in their children, family members who end up taking in youth, either to prevent homelessness or to prevent engagement with the the child welfare system. And so this is a solution to homelessness that is very unrecognized. And like I say, there are barriers to it. If you're a renter and you take in a youth who is unhoused, they often have to be under the radar, which impacts stability. There is no funding to support families if there is an extra need within that unit to support this youth. And that's what we're really trying to advocate for. The system inclusion, which to align federally to include permanent connections and social emotional support as a priority when it comes to homelessness, because we need support to heal from the experience of being homeless. And oftentimes youth are just left without connections, and permanent connections at this phase of life are vital and can really lead to a bad cycle. And so we're trying to emphasize that through technical assistance, training. We have a curriculum that we've developed called circle mapping, as well as capacity building and research. So we are the lead research organization on chosen family hosting in the country. And so we're really just trying to bring this to the community. You know, I'm a avid Northsider, Minnesota girl, and I just found that this was an untapped research and knowledge base and best practice that's been utilized for generations. We always take in our family members. That's what we do. You know, if we get into trouble back in the day, we'd send them down south to grandma or grandpa or aunt and uncle. And now they have built up so many barriers to doing that it's actually making a huge impact on the community.
Let's talk about some personal stories. I'm always interested, Angela and Bear and Jartue, on how we each arrive at the moment that we're in and the work that we do. And I think that what we all are committed to is the opportunity for human beings to be our best selves, to reflect compassion, understanding, to live and walk with a sense of purpose, and I would say a sense of love for the opportunity to be alive, number one. But our walk, I think, generally includes an appreciation, reverence for everything else that exists. And that means other living things, humans and non-human, and other things that are in the material world, you know, the plants, the rocks, the air, the water. I think that we have a relationship with everything that exists that's special, but we don't get a chance to articulate that. And I want to give you all a chance to talk about your sense of who you are in the cosmos, in the cosmology of existence, and how that funnels down into the work that you do, how that drives you, guides you, pulls you towards the commitment that you are reflecting in your daily walk. Let me start with Jartue, because you're nodding your head here. So I'm watching you. I know you're vibing with me now. Jump in. Just you know, what am I saying that is connecting with you?
That's such a beautiful thing for us to reflect on, and thank you for providing space for us to answer that and speak to it. As you were sharing kind of how we are in the cosmos and things of that nature, I instantly think about my why in my purpose for living and my purpose for why I choose to do the work that I do. And that means on a professional basis and also in the work that I do within my sorority. And so I say all that to say, I go back to a quote by Marian Wright Edelman, and she said that service is the rent we pay for living. And ever since I heard that quote and have been involved in the work of the Children's Defense Fund, I've done nothing but that. And so my reason or my rent to life or to paying is the service that I provide to my community, the service that I provide to my family, and so forth. And so that's instantly what I think about. And I also think about something that you said that makes me reflect on what brings me joy. Because as much as we are going about our day to day and we are trying to keep up with the hustle and bustle of life and trying to find an equal balance or a more equitable balance of work and play and all of that, I always go back to how am I going to find joy today? And yes, in addition to service, but then also how am I going to fill my cup to ensure that I'm not pouring from an empty one? And so I say all that to say once again, what brings me joy is, of course, the service, but then also making sure that I am connected to those that I enjoy spending time with, also finding myself with being able to be in nature. The sunny rays in Minnesota, we've been missing them, and nice weather to enjoy the outdoors, right? We've been missing that. And so really taking in those moments and finding the little sparks of joy throughout the day are really key for me. So thank you for that question.
Well, let me go deeper. What's your what's your family story, your genealogy? Number one, let me tell you, I love your voice. I could listen to you all day, every day. Just the beauty of your voice, the sound, the vibration of the voice, wonderful. So compliments to you for that. But what's your personal story, and whose shoulders do you stand on? What's your genealogy? Because I think we don't just show up. We're not accidents. We're here because we're supposed to be here. And history and time and the universe conspired for the moment of the that we are in, you know, and for your arrival and your arena of work and service. So tell me about all that went into making you you.
Just so amazing questions. First of all, thank you for that kind sentiment. And I received that. So thank you. And that is such a great question. I love this conversation already. And so not by choice. My family is here in Minnesota, but if we go back a generation or two, I actually have roots in Liberia, and I'm very proud of those roots. Although I am a first generation American born citizen, I take great pride in being a Liberian American. I did have the fortunate ability to go home for the very first time 3 years ago and talk about a culture shock. Talk about a culture shock, and in some degree, recognizing my privilege as an American. Because me being as toned as I am, I had privilege going back home to Liberia. And so I am a Minnesotan by way of Monrovia, Liberia, and first stomping grounds in the United States was sunny California on the West Coast. My father, who decided to come here to make a better living for his family and for future generations, said Minnesota would be the best place to raise a family with plenty of job opportunities, the schools, and it was a growing population back in the 90s, the late 80s and 90s. Minnesota was a growing place for Liberian immigrants. And so that's how we landed here. And so I have my roots, yes, planted in Minnesota. However, I take great pride in the Liberian culture and how I've been raised, what the culture has taught me, and what I'm also able to pass down to my children, because they too will one day go home as well.
I'm Al McFarlane. This is The Conversation with Al McFarlane. My guest today, you just heard Jartue McCoy. She's on the Hennepin County, Ramsey County Youth Advisory Board. I'll get the name right in a second. Also here is Bear, who is president of the Youth Advisory Board. Bear, let me ask you the same questions. I love your name, first of all. Tell me about your name and what the name signifies, what it means, and how you live in that name, how that name lives in you.
Yeah, so my name actually, I'm Native American and I'm Black. So I don't know much about my family history. I was a former foster kid. So I bounced around a lot and I have really no connection outside of my siblings. So I don't know a lot about my family history, but my name was actually given to me by a really close family friend. I look at him as kind of an uncle. When I was younger, I called him Big Bear and he would call me Little Bear. And so it's just kind of a name that has stuck with me. Now I've kind of transitioned into Big Bear. So now that I'm older, a lot of people will call me Big Bear. But yeah, so Bear is just a name that, was given to me by a close family friend who helped raise me in some really integral ways. He taught me how to tie my first tie. He taught me what it means to be a leader, leading with intention, right? Leading throughout whatever you're going through. So for me, I find myself in spaces where I just naturally gravitate towards leader. And I think part of that is because I was raised by experiences that I don't think a lot of other people have. Growing up in a foster care system, growing up with parents who were drug addicts. My dad was in prison when I was born, so I don't know much about their history, but being raised by I would say, experiences like that, I've learned to just go on my own, but I've also learned to rely on the people that come into your life inadvertently, right? The people that show up for you as a mom or a grandma or as an uncle or in replacement for a parent, right? Those experiences are so integral to how we grow up and how we become, right? I look at a lot of my peers, and a lot of my peers that I've met more recently don't have those experiences like I do. And so I'm very lucky in the people that really gathered around me, my community, to show me that there was a better way. You know, growing up, I got into a lot of trouble. I was incarcerated as a juvenile. And so to be where I'm at right now, as president of the Youth Advisory Board, to be making these events, you know, I'm very proud of that. And I take a lot of pride in that. And, you know, we have a saying on the Youth Advisory Board that there's eyes and ears everywhere, right? There's somebody that's looking at you and watching you, you know what I mean? And for me to create opportunities and to really take pride in that means that it's not just affecting my professional life, it's how I move in my personal life as well. You know, Jartue is in a lot of ways like a mom to me. She teaches me a lot of lessons, and it's just a great mentor to me in just everything, not just my professional life, but just life in general. And I'm honored to know and to learn from Jartue. And one of the things that she said to me when she first met me was, don't block your own blessings. And I've taken that to, you know, every part of my life. You know, for me, like, I'm somebody that, because I've grown up in instability, that I like to hold on to the power that I have, but releasing that and has really given me so many opportunities in life. I am engaged to another person on my youth advisory board, and we're both leaders, we're both artists, we're both entrepreneurs. My best friends are on the youth advisory board, so it's an honor to be here and really give back to my community in ways that I was given to, and just being able to create all these opportunities and just make life better for young people like me. So
I'm inspired by your testimony, by your story, but I want to go deeper. So talk about, if you would, expectations you had as a child. Bear, when you were 4 or 5, what was the world like when you were 4, 5, 9? Describe, if you would, how the world appeared to you and who you were in relation to the world.
Mm-hmm. The world for me at 4 and 5 was really hard. I witnessed abuse growing up. I've witnessed, my mom being put in positions where it's just not something a kid should see.
Your mom is Native American, or your dad?
My mom is Native American. Yeah.
Okay.
My mom comes from generations of boarding school survivors. Mm-hmm. So my mom grew up in alcoholism herself. She grew up in, just tumultuous waters, I would say. And so it's just generational trauma.
What nation is your family part of?
So my mom is both Lakota and Ojibwe, so Anishinaabe and Sioux. Mm-hmm. So yeah, Upper Sioux. So I don't know. It's hard for me to relate to people, I guess you could say. I've had a really hard time growing up relating to the world around me because the world around me was so chaotic. I had to learn how to survive. My childhood was about survival. My childhood was about taking care of my mom and making sure my mom was safe, right? So my mom's energy came before mine. So I've always been a protector. I've always been a leader in that sense as well, where I'm somebody who, when I'm close to you, I want to protect you from everything around you, right? So for me, I take really big pride in being somebody who looks out for my friends, somebody who looks out for my fiance, somebody that looks out for my nieces and nephews, right? Because I grew up in such a survival mode, it's been hard as an adult to learn what peace feels like. I've had to learn how to force myself to gravitate towards peace. And for me, peace looks like skateboarding with my friends, doing art, right? Being an entrepreneur, and I have 2 businesses that I run. Just having to relearn what it's like to feel loved without chaos, right? So there's so many lessons that I've learned growing up in such a tumultuous way. But when I was 4 or 5, I also learned what it was like to teach myself. So I have taught myself what it's like. Sorry about that. I've taught myself what it's like to create, what it's like to like skateboarding. I love skateboarding. That's probably one of my favorite things. But skateboarding has taught me about determination. It's taught me about having to learn different ways to learn about the world, right? So I guess that's I'm a lifelong learner, I would say.
I'm Al McFarlane. This is The Conversation with Al McFarlane. You're listening to the voice of Bear, who's president of the Youth Advisory Board, HHR Youth Advisory Board. I should have those acronyms in front of me. HHR, Bear is what again?
I'm the president.
Heading home, right? HHR is heading home, Ramsey. So thank you. And who has made this conversation possible is my friend Angela Reed. She's the executive director of CloseKnit, and she identified and connected with and related with this energy. I would suspect, Angela, that when you came across Jartue and Bear, you recognized genius first and foremost, and you recognize the power, right? And the intensity and the clarity of their existence, of their movement, of their intention. And so, Angela, let me say that to say how I see you as a spirit of healing, as a healer in the community and in the world, and connected to this mission of our continued development. We are on the pathway to being better human beings. And so talk about your work, your story, Angela, and we'll come back. And all of this is going to lead us back to reminding people to join in the event coming up. So we want to keep that topmost as well.
Well, I mean, I think, ultimately life has its experiences that do tend to groom you in the way that you're supposed to be. And it kind of develops and reveals itself in various ways through time. And so I was born in Golden Valley. I went to school in North Minneapolis until middle school, then transferred to the suburbs, and kind of immediately saw a difference and saw, where additional support could be helpful. And my parents have always been engaged. My mother was an executive director and then went on to be the chief operating officer of the longest running chemical health agency in the country. My father was an attorney, one of the first certified specialists in Minnesota. And I would always just travel around with him to board meetings. So I think, number one, being in long, dry meetings where you might be the only person of color is completely ingrained. And so I've kind of taken on that role and understand how vital it is to be in some of these arenas to represent voices that are not at this table. And so I've always been one that's also been very geared towards solutions and trying to make an impact. My actual first degree is early childhood, but my major field of study is human development and family studies. And so understanding that, it really gave me the insight of, yes, we have concerns and things that need to be addressed, but there is a logical cause and there is a solution out. There is a way that these outcomes are created, and there is a way to impact it. And so we have to dive in really to do that. And so I always want to just position myself as a way to really highlight voices of the work that's working and the voices and experiences that our people are in. And whatever position I'm in within a leadership, I really believe that it is my responsibility to leverage whatever resources I have available, even if it's highlighting a voice, sharing some information, giving support in whatever arenas that I'm trained in. So we do technical assistance, we do capacity building. I do allow executive directors to have a lot of private conversations about programming, reporting, and whatever background experience I bring. And so one of the key statements that I use a lot is when spider webs unite, they can tie up a lion. I'm really really invested in Minnesota's community and also the impact of North Minneapolis. I mean, that's my home. That's where I met my best friend. That's where I met, the fathers of my children. And it's just kind of the heart of, Minnesota and the community that I know. I remember how it was in the 80s and 90s and the best times that we had there, and that we're going through some things. And I also like to study and follow the high level research and disparities and keep myself connected in those federal arenas, state arenas, legislative arenas to really kind of share this information and really try to bring a grounded voice to the people who will listen. I serve as I am the legislative co-lead for the housing coalition called Homes for All. I'm also the Hennepin County governor for the Minnesota Council of Recovery and Chemical Health. And so really trying to, bring forward a grass-rooted effort to make these changes. And so the organization that I work with emphasizes, natural supports, and that's all of us. We're at natural support just even within this meeting. Our churches, our nonprofit organizations, our volunteers, our friends and family who are supporting one another need support to give that support. And so I really want to position myself to be that and to highlight what's going on. And so it's just, I really want to see change, even if it's on a community level, but on an individual level. One person that receives help and support from myself or any of the area organizations is vital, because we just have a heart of gold. And I think the community has just gotten to such a high level of stress and concentrated disadvantage that with a strategic plan, we can see an impact. And we do, we see it every day, but we just we share it within our networks and everybody doesn't really know. So, with me, it's just about change, support, and being part of a community.
Awesome. I'm Al McFarlane. This is The Conversation with Al McFarlane. That was the voice of Angela Reed, who's the executive director of CloseKnit, and the person responsible for this convening right now. I want to shift a little bit, have you guys hang out for a second, and bring in someone just for a few minutes to talk about an event going on tonight in South Minneapolis that we want you to be aware of. He's actually preparing for the meeting, so he ducked out to join me on this program. I see him on the phone in the back room now. But Mark Anderson, if you can join the live stream for a second here, I'll bring you on screen. Mark Anderson. Mark, he's the board secretary of the Unity Community Mediation Team, and you all have an important event going on tonight over at George Floyd Square, or around George Floyd Square. Mark, how you doing?
Very good. Thanks so much for asking me to come on.
Well, I think, obviously we know that the work you do, the work of Unity Community Mediation Team is important, and where we can highlight that, we're glad to. Tell me what's going on tonight and how can people support it?
Right. So this is at 4 p.m. From 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. at George Floyd Square. It's in the church. There's a church right there at the corner, 38th of Chicago, and we're going to be on their property in their little parking lot there. And it's going to be an event for prayer and healing for the community, which continues to be in trauma around, all the difficult things that people have been through in recent days and years. And what we're going to do is talk about what we've achieved, what Unity Community Mediation Team has achieved working with our community partners. And there's basically two things we want to talk about. And this is I've been listening to your conversation here today. It's a similar conversation. It's about the Black pastors are going to come out, and they're going to pray with us, and we're going to have the community organization. Cynthia Wilson from NAACP is going to speak. Steve Floyd from Agape Movement, which is right there on 38th in Chicago, and Reverend Ian Bethel. He's chair of our Unity Community Mediation Team, pastor at New Beginnings Baptist Ministries, and we're going to talk about these sites that we've set up. And this started out with our memorandum. We have a memorandum of agreement, memorandum of understanding with the city of Minneapolis that we wrote together, the community organizations that are in UCMT, along with the police department, and now we're in the process of implementing all the approximately 100 provisions in that agreement. And one of those agreements is to create community-based sites where individuals can get help filing a complaint with regarding misconduct by a police officer, mistreatment. And this is in the official City of Minneapolis complaint process, but we can help at these sites. And these sites are in all the communities we work with, and they're all represented on our board, UCMT board. And this is New Beginnings Baptist Church is on 43rd and First Avenue South there. That's the site. NAACP Minneapolis over on West Broadway is the site. Indigenous Protector Movement on Franklin Avenue there in the Native American community. Little Earth Residents Association, which is part of that housing over at in the Phillips neighborhood, Little Earth of United Tribes. New Salem Baptist Church in North Minneapolis is a site. These are all sites. Cedar Riverside Opportunity Center, that's just with the Somali community over on the West Bank. Then Voice of East African Women, that's Somali community on Lake Street. And Nuestra Lucha, which is Latino community, bilingual Spanish and English community. They're part of this. That's a site. And then Quorum, which is the LGBTQ Chamber of Commerce, and the director there has been working with our Unity community for 20 years. And she used to be with Outfront Minnesota, and then back in the day, and then now she's at Quorum. And so what they can do at these sites is they can file a complaint, get help filing a complaint, make sure that it's written in a way that it will stand up, in a court proceeding, so that it will, so it won't just get dropped because it wasn't completely filled out. All the information needed wasn't included. They can become a community mentor. So we create a mentor program with the new recruits that the Minneapolis Police Department is bringing on. Community members who will mentor one-on-one an officer and help them, welcome them to the community, introduce them to some of the community leaders, just become a support for them within the community. We want them to be successful as they begin their career with the police department. And a lot of these young officers, we've been meeting with them, and it's inspiring to see who's going into this, because they're young people that are interested in the community. They're interested in transforming public safety, and they see Minneapolis moving in that direction, so they want to be part of the police department here. We have they can get information about the latest developments in public safety. So we have now a consent decree. This is a federal agreement with the previous Biden administration Justice Department that's being implemented by the city. There's a settlement agreement, which is between the city and the Minnesota Department of Human Rights. And then there's a memorandum of understanding with Unity Community Mediation Team, and they're all very, very similar. Unity Community's agreement dates back to 2003. And we had a version of it which was updated after George Floyd died in that tragedy, that murder at 38th in Chicago. So learn about, what are the latest changes in these in public safety in Minneapolis. They can find that out at the sites. Find out about ELIFA. This is the Effective Law Enforcement for All. That's the monitor with the settlement agreement that the city has signed with the state. They could submit a comment on proposed MPD policy changes. So MPD is, Minneapolis Police Department is rewriting their policy and procedure manual. It's about an 800-page book with all the policies and procedures that the officers are required to follow. And they're rewriting it now to make it clear, to bring it up to date, to reduce redundancies and inaccuracies. And so they're proposing, and they post these, so the public can comment on these changes, policy changes. They can do that at the sites. There's paid internship. The MPD has paid internships, free college tuition for those interested in going into a work with Minneapolis Police Department. They can find out about that. They can acknowledge, not only file a complaint, but if there's exceptional community policing by an MPD officer, they can acknowledge that and thank the officer and thank the department. And they can participate in a new program we're just starting out next month, which is called Neighbors Helping Neighbors. This is a mediation. So instead of having police responding to calls which really are not about crime, they're about a dispute between neighbors, an argument between neighbors about any particular issue that need really mediation, not law enforcement. And so we're beginning that, and that's being led by Cynthia Wilson at NAACP with the support of participation of all the communities that are involved in UCMT, which is African American, Native American, Latino, and Somali communities are all involved in that. So we're going to talk about that briefly, and then we're going to talk about that we're going to be working with ELIFA, supporting ELIFA's efforts in Minneapolis as a monitor this settlement agreement, which is overseen by a judge, by a Hennepin County Court judge. So and then after that's a 1 hour program. That's from 4 to 5. That's right at George Floyd Square, 38th in Chicago. And then after that, we'll move to Phelps Park. And these young teams, these young coaches in African American teams and the Native American teams that are involved in the park board of football and other athletic programs went to the park board and were opposed to this change the park board was going to implement called central registration, where these historic teams that had been participating in sports in the parks were going to be excluded from being able to participate as the teams based on their community identity. They were going to have to go into central registration. And these young coaches went to the park board and they said, no, these children, this is about mentoring these children. This is about taking care of them, make sure they have their needs met. And the parents don't want them to be placed with a random coach, a random team. They want them to be with the coaches that they know, that they trust. And so the park board agreed. And so these teams are going to be celebrating that. They're going to be playing little flag football at the park. The police department's going to bring ice cream for the kids and some other things, family-friendly activities for people. And then some of the coaches are going to bring hot dogs and hamburgers and feed the young people that are playing the football. And so anyone's interested, and that's at Phelps Park. That's just 1 block south. So that's 39th and Chicago Avenue. So that's what we're doing today.
Let me ask you, one of our friends, Tedros Tamret, sent this note in the Post. Why is the white community not targeted in this project? I'm presuming he's talking about the project today. Tamret, if I'm not clear on your question, just type in more clarification. But your program today targets who?
The narrative. It's about the narrative at George Floyd Square, primarily. I think fundamentally, this motto of abolish and dismantle the police department, and the African American community organizations that work in UCMT are saying they want good policing, but they don't want to abolish and dismantle, because public safety is real. And people really rely on the police department, but they want good policing. And so instead of allowing the primary narrative to be about this abolish and dismantle movement, let's celebrate the victories we've had, that the community has had, making these changes in public safety that I just listed. There's been a lot of progress since George Floyd was killed. And, let's change.
Let me just remind people to show up today at 4:00, because I want to bring my other guests back in.
Okay.
But today at 4:00,
correct,
at George Floyd Square,
correct.
Everybody's welcome to come.
Absolutely, right? Absolutely. Yeah. Everybody's invited.
Let me shout out to Mary Milliner as well. She's been checking in with us on the comment section. She said that we've got a connection. That's great. Of course we do. And that she was a early childhood professional for 25 years. And she's appreciating this conversation. I think, hearing all of us here, because these are important conversations. She said finally in her last note, having children's needs met. That's what they are for the future. And the more they know, the better we are taken care of in the future. We're watched over. Let me switch back to you, Bear, if you would. As you're listening to Mark talk about the need to bring community together to keep talking about George Floyd and about justice and about what policing should be. He's also talking about ensuring that the voices of young people are heard. And so how do you, as a young person and with your peer group, bring your understanding to the public square?
Yes. So thank you for that question. First and foremost, I believe in the power of young people. I believe in the power of their voice. And sometimes all it takes is for somebody to believe in the power of a young person. So there's that. Growing up, I have witnessed, a lot of police brutality. I've experienced it myself. When I was arrested as a young person, I personally went through, a pretty rough interaction with the police. It has taken me years to be able to talk about it, but to be able to process it.
Do you mind talking about it?
Yeah, I could talk about it.
Yeah,
so I was in actually Lake Elmo, Minnesota, at a friend's house. The police found out that I was there, and they came and I tried to run, which was, I shouldn't have did that. I know that at my part, but I tried to run. Police caught me, and I was put in handcuffs. I was put in, they actually had shackles, and they hogtied me. And they picked me up and put me into the back of their police car, face down, and that experience had a huge.
How old were you? How big or small were you at the time?
I was 12 years old.
So
100 pounds? Not
kid?
even. Yeah, not even. There was
Mm-hmm.
definitely no need for that to happen, and so
hogtying you is just pure humiliation. Pure intimidation, pure terror. You're being terrorized.
Yeah. And it was horrifying. It was a horrifying experience. I felt so small, right? When you have an interaction with the police like that, you feel so powerless. And so when you experience something like that, it's hard to know that your voice matters, right? And I know so many of my peers who have gone through a similar experience, have had, an experience with a police officer that was so incredibly negative and so incredibly just an abuse of power, right? And when you grow up in environments where that is so common, you learn that your voice doesn't matter. And so I think part of being a young leader and being just somebody who is out front fighting for young people is you give young people a voice back. You give young people the opportunity to be heard, to be understood, right? And I think with our event, that is one of the biggest things that we want. We want young people to tell their stories and be heard, right? And so that's always something that I'm keeping in mind as a young leader myself, is how do I create opportunities for young people and their stories to be heard? And so that's the important piece of our conference is, young people in spaces where they traditionally don't have the power, right? Whether that's with the police or with employers, right? When you go for a job interview, there's a clear power imbalance, and especially with young people trying to get gainful employment, So, yeah. So I think as a young leader, that is my ultimate goal, is to really uplift the voices of youth.
Jartue, we've got about 3 minutes left. Why don't you have you make the invitation, date, time, place, update the information so the people who are listening or watching on our social media can be supportive and be present.
Absolutely. And so we welcome you to join us for the first ever Flipping Tables Conference. And that's going to be put on by none other than the Heading Home Ramsey Youth Advisory Board. Please note a change in the location. The date will stay the same, though, Wednesday, May 7th at 4:30 to 7 p.m. And the new location is the Fairview Community Health and Wellness Hub in downtown St. Paul. We will have a remarkable event with dynamic storytelling, community organizations to be connected with young people, as well as resources for other folks as well. And then, of course, a panel discussion and debrief. So that way we are able to unpack a little bit about our experience that we share at the Flipping Tables Conference. We look forward to serving you a delicious meal brought to you by Nanny's Jamaican Kitchen, a small business located in St. Paul as well. And we also invite folks to participate in volunteering. All that information is posted on the website, ramseycounty.us/YAB. Reach out to me. Please RSVP for the event, and we look forward to seeing you there.
Awesome. And Angela, got about a minute left. Final words, comments, just instructions to young people, instructions to the community.
Please register, and I sent the wrong flyer, so I will send you an updated one with the location. I would say just get involved. I mean, there's so many things that we as a community can do. And with all the changes that have been taking place in the community, engage in the country federally with this administration, it's important for the community to really engage and lock down and support these programs that really need to be uplifted. Our infrastructure is at risk, and the supporters in the community are vital. So I just really appreciate everything. Bear, you really touched my heart. As usual, Bear will be speaking again at the Beth Jacob Congregation on May 10th, and just support their organization and highlight this movement. And please, please, please get engaged. We really need to get some more providers and youth there. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. You got 30 seconds. Make the invitation again for tonight.
Yeah, 4:00 at George Floyd Square 38 and Chicago Avenue. Hope everyone will come. It's going to be a positive event. The pastors are going to lead us in some prayer, and we're going to hear from the city council member that represents the area, Andrea Jenkins from the Business Association there, right on that block. Black business people, and then we're going to hear from Cynthia Wilson from NAACP, and everyone's welcome. I hope everyone will come out.
Thank you so much, and thanks to Michelle who joins us from out east. Michelle, thank you for your comments in the chat, and thank you to Mary Milliner too for your comments. So we really appreciate you weighing in. Stay connected, And if you want to be a guest on the show, just let us know. We'll bring you on board. I'm Al McFarlane. This has been The Conversation with Al McFarlane. We'll see you next time. Take care.